There is new dramatic video of Thursday's raid to free prisoners of ISIS in Iraq. The U.S.-led mission took the life of a Delta Force soldier. Master Sergeant Joshua Wheeler died from wounds suffered in a firefight on the ground in Iraq. But the Obama administration is having a difficult time using the word combat to describe our engagement there.
This is a markedly different mission than our men and women in uniform were given in 2003.
It's hard to see that operation as an falling in the advised category. That's combat in every sense of the word.
The point is that, yes, our military personnel are going to encounter risk when they're in Iraq, even in the course of carrying out a train, advise, and assist mission.
We do not have combat formations there the way we had once upon a time in Iraq, or the way we have had in years past in Afghanistan. But we do have people who are in harm's way. This is combat. Things are complicated.
Joining us now are two men who once put their own lives in danger in Iraq. They led SEAL Team 3, the most highly decorated special ops unit of the war. Jocko, Willink, and Leif Babin are now the authors of the new bestseller, Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. What a pleasure to have you at the table with us here for the Five.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
So a lot of news breaking and developing on this story, including dramatic new footage of this special ops unit and what happened during this raid. Tell us sort of your thoughts and feelings on this, Jocko.
Well, you know, going off the soundbite that they just played about that not being combat, when you hear machine gun fire and there's people running to try and kill an enemy and an enemy's trying to kill you, that's combat.
Now, what about the fact that they're having a trouble, calling it combat, the classification, because there's a lot of benefits that can come into play when it is designated as combat action versus it not being that?
Definitely. I mean, I think to the guys that are actually serving in harm's way, I mean, they don't care about these kind of semantics. We don't care about any of that stuff. They want to go in there and make a difference and kill bad guys, whether it's rescue hostages or just take out some ISIS fighters, and they're willing to put their lives on the line. And certainly my hat's off to them. And I think probably like us, they're looking and laughing at those kind of semantics that the politicians are playing.
And
I could see President Obama saying, okay, if that's their job, that's workplace violence.
Well, for special ops,
yeah,
that is
that's
every day
violence.
for them is workplace, violence essentially in terms of the combat. Go ahead, Julie.
But is it semantics? I don't think most people understand this, but is it semantics, or are there actual benefits that you get if you're classified as being killed in combat versus being killed in whatever the administration is calling this, right? I would think.
Because I think the wife, of the fallen soldier of the Delta Force actually is making a specific plea to be able to get those kind of benefits, because I guess more benefits she'll receive if it's classified that way. I don't know if you guys even ever come into that with the number of people that you've had, the pleasure to serve and work with, when you have family members that are looking to pick up the pieces and recover, and it can be a tremendous financial strain as well.
I'm sure he's going to get the benefits that he deserves for being killed in combat and putting his life on the line and losing it. It's a great sacrifice, and he'll be taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome that we saved those hostages. Yeah. I mean, and in fact, and that we have video to show the kind of danger that they were in and the ability to get so many people out. And so sadly, our hero lost his life. And I was just curious, though, more broadly, when you work in special operations, you could be sent anywhere, anytime, and usually we don't ever hear about it, which I think is appropriate. But do you think that troops serving now in special operations and doing the kind of work that President Obama has them doing now, do you think that they feel like they understand what the president's mission is, and that do they feel fully supported, that they have all the resources they need and the rules of engagement to complete that mission?
I can't speak for these guys, and I can tell you this. It was when I was, when we were overseas back in 2006, and there were a lot of people that were commenting about what we were doing and those kind of things. And so, I don't want to ever be that person to be back here in the rear echelon trying to pass the judgment or talking about what guys are doing. I can tell you this though. We have some extraordinary U.S. servicemen and women that are willing to put their lives on the line to go make a difference, whether it's rescue hostages or kill ISIS terrorists that are threats to America, and they are willing to go do it at any time, and we just need some leadership that allows them to go do it. And get
So can I submit that it's probably not about the benefits that the family would be receiving of the fallen soldier, it's more likely the administration doesn't want to say that we lost another soldier on their watch. Does it tick you off when they can't back you guys up? I mean, here's what happened at that firefight. What I understand was it was supposed to be a Kurdish mission. The Kurds said, we're not doing it, we're not going in first, and we stood up. American soldiers walked in first, and one got killed. Does it tick you off when the administration won't back you up and say, hey, look at those heroes, there are heroes. Yes, it was a combat mission. One died on our watch.
I would love for them to say that, and that's what they should say. It was obviously a combat mission. I can't even believe we're sitting here debating it or talking about it. The guy got killed in combat. There's no question about it.
So what do you think's behind it, Leif?
It's politics, obviously. I mean, I'm arguing about politically. It's maybe not unsound to talk about. They've been all the talk about boots on the ground, and so now we can't admit that there actually are boots on the ground that are in harm's way. So.
But you're very gracious, and you served, and you continue to try to make sure that you're not trying to be political in this situation anyway.
Right.
Can I just talk about the actual video? They always talk about the fog of war. But what I saw there is the speed of war, and that how all of your thinking is almost now instinctual, and the training that must go into that, so that every decision you make is already made before you even think about it. I mean, if that was in there, I would need a full body Depends. I would not last that, and it's impressive.
Kind of like on this set.
On this show, exactly. It just shows me how clear, how vulnerable our men are when they do these things, and how brave they are. And I think I'm glad that you said that these guys want to go out there and do this stuff and go after ISIS. I mean, ISIS is the worst incarnation of evil since Hitler. And I think that if you enter the service, this is exactly why, right? That was like 3 questions.
Yeah, and to answer one of them, yes, ISIS is evil. And when you have an enemy that's clearly defined as evil, that makes your job a lot easier, because it's not too much debate that these guys are bad and we should kill them.
Yeah.
Now, your other 2 questions, you're going to have to ask them again.
Let me think. The training involved in that.
Yeah, when you get in those situations, all the mechanical things that the guys are doing, they're like a basketball player, like a football player. They're not thinking about that jump shot. They're pulling the trigger and making it happen. They don't have to think about it. The decisions that you're making on the battlefield, when you're actually maneuvering your troops, those take some thought, they take some instinct, they take some training. But that's why we have, great leaders and great leadership training in the military.
Right.
So we want to move on to something super exciting, and I'll tell you, it's a fantastic read. Extreme Ownership. This is their book. I predict major national bestseller by these 2 fine gentlemen. So not only did you serve on the battlefield, but you're giving back here by trying to partake in, relaying information about leadership and what it takes. And it's really a larger cultural issue about, raising people to be responsible citizens, men or women, children, the traits and the characters that you need to be able to get ahead and do the right thing in life. Tell us about the inspiration for the book and when you decided to do it.
Well, while we were still in the military, we were actually both ended up in a positions where we were teaching leadership to the junior SEALs. And then they would ask us, hey, can you write some of that stuff down? And they'd take notes, and we eventually assembled something decent for them. And when we got out, we started working, with civilian companies and teaching them leadership. And of course, we got asked the same question. Hey, do you have this written down anywhere? Can we have some reference material? Yeah. So we started writing it down, and the next thing you know, we have this book. So
and how was the process, Leif, to be able to work together, collaborative? You worked so well together in the field on all the missions that you had together, and as SEAL Team 3 most decorated at that time, in Iraq. The 2 of you working to write a book. How was it different?
It was a great experience, certainly, but it certainly was a lot of work. We wanted to write this ourselves. We didn't want to use an author. We wanted to make sure the combat stories in there were told in a humble manner, and that the principles illustrated were done in the right way. Because if you can't tell, we actually believe in this stuff. We're very passionate about it because we've seen it work on the battlefield. We've seen the difference that it can make, and certainly now in the arena.
So I got to tell you, I read this book this weekend, and I tremendously recommend it to everybody. But what I took away from it is that you guys are fighting against the enabling culture. That we basically become a culture of enablers. And you talk about how you go into companies, you talk about training SEALs, and that's great. I actually thought about bringing you guys to talk to my kids' preschool. Leif, I know that you have a little guy, I do too. And, to me, you've got all these parents who continually are raising these kids to enable them to constantly make excuses for what's going on. And I read this book, and I thought, this is a book that parents should read. Not just about how to train SEALs or about training companies, but really about training parents to have their kids take ownership, because that's how you raise leaders. And that's exactly what I took from it, and I want to thank you, because it kind of crystallized for me as a parent, what you want to do to raise kids to be able to become guys like you, to actually take ownership of what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We're definitely proud of I think the principals here, because we've seen them work, and we've actually had people tell us that we talk about extreme ownership. I had a client tell us that extreme ownership saved his marriage.
Yeah.
Because he was blaming things on his spouse, was making excuses and for his own behavior, and once he kind of had to look inwardly and say, what can I do to change the outcome? He did that.
What a great story. You'll be getting a lot more of those anecdotes, I think, as the book gets exposure.
Great leaders are made in the battle, in the field, adapting to different circumstances. You guys went into Ramadi. You probably didn't have training for an urban setting warfare like that. Tell us about what it took and what you learned from that and how a leader is born in those settings.
Well, we actually did have a pretty significant amount of training in the urban combat. And, when we got there and people are kind of throwing this that we did the Battle of Ramadi, it was actually 5,600 soldiers and Marines along with us from the 1st Armored Division that were awesome. And so what we did bring to the battle and what we did have to adapt to was, how do we fit in with that other group? How do we support them? How do we take what strategy they're using and adapt it to what we're doing? I think that's really where we kind of made some progress and did some stuff that people hadn't done before. Which
like?
Support these giant conventional units out going street to street in the Battle of Ramadi. And, the SEALs, we were out there providing sniper overwatch and getting in areas where maybe they couldn't get to, so we could protect them when they were moving through the city.
Mm-hmm. And their most vulnerable moments. Yeah.
I want to ask about the training, because you were talking about this before, about the kind of the evolution of simulation that is helping people learn how to fire better. Are you worried about this in terms of the fact that every kid has this accessible to themselves? They can go get a video game and they can learn how to shoot as well as anybody.
I don't know if that I'm necessarily worried about it, but the military is now using video games, really nice, cool video games to train people. And so it's an effective training tool. It's very realistic. I look at some of those video games. They're awesome. They're unbelievably realistic.
They really
I don't play any video games myself, but
you don't have to.
I played Pong, right? Yes. You guys may remember that, but
I do.
Or
now they have Halo, and
now they've got where you get involved in that and immersed in that. It's very, very realistic, and I believe it actually is good training.
Mm-hmm. I just had one last question, which is, when you go to see civilian business leaders, what's their number one concern? What are they trying to accomplish with their teams that they don't have without you as consultants coming in?
I'll tell you, we have to look at each one on a case-by-case basis, because every company that we go into is different. Now, we still find it's only a half a dozen problems, It's they're not communicating, there's silos. It's the basic things that people know. And we come in, we assess, we figure out where the real choke points are, and we help them get through those.
Pretty cool.
I already am looking forward to their next book. Why not, right? See how many people you can help. It's fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you both here, Jocko and Leif. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you for your service.
And you know what's coming. Please go out and buy a copy of their fantastic new book, Extreme Ownership, and we hope you'll both join us again. Come back. We've got a lot of stories we'd love to talk to you about.